Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, TheNextBigThing, back again with yet another Star vs. the Forces of Evil analysis video. And in today's video, we're gonna be discussing about Junkin Janna and the spell with no name. And so, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste any more time, and let's get started with the video. So basically, right at the beginning of the episode Junkin Janna, we have Tom here trying to basically survive without Star as she's on her own meeting with the Magic High Commission with Eclipsa. And supposedly a way for him to get away from thinking about Star as she is busy herself, he decides to hang out with Janna. But throughout the remainder of the time, he's basically still in contact with Star by texting her back and forth.
Oh, I got a call. Hello?
You know, if you really want to have a life when you're away from Star, you might want to get off your phone.
It even comes up to the part where Tom even actually tries to convince Janna by telling her the fact that their relationship is so serious, to which Janna basically ignores and says sure.
it's what it's like being in a serious relationship.
Whatever.
And I honestly do believe that there's something that maybe Janna knows that Tom doesn't about Tom and Star's relationship. I mean, that scene just seemed a bit too subtle. This was the same girl focusing on Jackie's reaction after realizing that Star had a crush on Marco the whole time. But going back to the story with Star and Eclipsa, we have the both of them waiting for the Magic High Commission while Sean basically taunts them with his horrible donuts. Which sucked for Eclipsa the most because she was the one chugging them down trying to get away from Sean. But of course the Magic High Commission finally barges in after a certain amount of time, but before we get to that part of the story, let's go back to Janna and Tom. With the story of both Tom and Janna, we have them adventuring their way up a hill in order to slide down a hill with a giant boot. But once they finally make it to the very top of that hill, there's a crow that Janna realizes is the same crow that she usually encounters when doing these trips. So Janna, with all her might, encourages Tom to blast down the crow, and apparently that's the main reason why she brought him. However, he decides, nah, I'm not gonna shoot it down, simply because he believed at first that it was an innocent bird, to which they both find out at the very end that it wasn't. They eventually follow it down back to the old butterfly castle, and then once they finally make it to where the boot is, they also encounter the crow once again. Only this time, not only did they originally find out before that it had the strength to carry the boot while flying, but this time it had the strength to stop Tom in his tracks. And Janna and Tom were in for a rude awakening because it eventually transformed into a gigantic bird with muscular features. Interestingly, the same exact way Mina Loveberry herself would transform whenever she were to get dangerously angry. And was that a coincidence? Well, no. We end up finding out later in that episode that Mina Loveberry was indeed the one responsible for making the bird the way he was. So, sadly, I was wrong in my last analysis video. It seems as if Mina Loveberry already knows the secret potion that Celeria knew back in the day. And even though it was good that Janna and Tom both were able to make it out of there alive, they still weren't able to recover the giant boot, which was, by the way, a part of the huge armor that was the same exact armor that we saw in the episode Munipent's Day back in season 1. So what does this mean exactly? Well, I guess we're looking at another Munipent's Day, only this time in the 21st century. Welcome to another Monsters vs. Humans war, once again because of Mina Loveberry and her just ridiculous mentality. But at the same time, Eclipsa isn't looking too pretty herself, because as we go back to the other part of this episode with the Magic High Commission, it is revealed through the Magic High Commission themselves that there is dark, powerful magic that hasn't been used for centuries being used in the Monster Temple. They even say obviously Glossark wouldn't be the one using it, and they said centuries of princesses haven't been using that. So quite honestly, I don't blame them for pointing the finger straight at Eclipsa, who obviously was storming out innocently as she could. There's even a slight resistance from Star herself as Eclipsa tries to drag her out alongside with her. Very much so like how Star reacted and had resistance towards Eclipsa after not revealing to the fact that she had a piece of the Book of Spells. But I mean, was it Eclipsa though? There was the fact that Mina Loveberry back in season 3 was basically living at the Monster Temple beforehand, but she seems to be at the Butterfly Castle, so I don't know if we can blame her anymore. However, once again, Eclipsa Butterfly herself lives in that castle now, and most of all, she could be trying to free Globgor after all this time. Do you truthfully all believe that she's practicing all of these dark, powerful spells just because? I mean, surely it can't be to prepare for war somewhere. I mean, isn't Muni basically the most peaceful place at this moment, trying to bring monsters and humans together? And most of all, do you really believe that Eclipsa is up at around 12 a.m. in the morning simply brushing Globgore's teeth? I don't think so. That is some ultimate bullcrap. When I saw that in that Curse of the Blood Moon episode, I was thinking something else fishy was going on. And to build up the final verdict once and for all, we're gonna go on to part B of this episode because this one was a bit fishy too. Now, I for one personally found this episode quite hilarious from the beginning because they made it seem as if it was just some innocent pancake party, but then it turns into something completely different. Eventually, given time, Eclipse's spells begin to barge in through Star Butterfly's magical spell room. And once inside, they break all of the lights inside of the room and then stun the glowworm from Star Butterfly's spell room and then use him in order to find something. So, once the glowworm is taken, they all decide that Narwhal should be the one to go after the other spells. And just a reminder, Narwhal is Star's most consistently used spell and the one represented in Star's tapestry, so I think there was a little bit of symbolism throughout this episode for the Narwhal Blast. So, once abandoned and locked out of his very own spell room, Narwhal adventures around and discovers the other queen's rooms, to which he says that he had no knowledge of the fact that there were this many queens of Muni, and it's possibly because of the fact of what I said in my other analysis video mentioning that Skywyn was actually the 27th queen of Muni. Sometime later, Narwhal finally runs into them and finds out that they come from Selena's room. It doesn't seem as if they got anything from out of the room, but instead they were just simply inspecting it. But if they did somehow get something from out of Selena's room, that would be quite interesting. I mean, she is the one with all of the secrets beneath that magical wand. So then, after not finding any leads within Selena's room, they then invade Moon's room and then still find nothing. However, coincidentally, after inspecting Moon's room, they eventually spot the magical spell that they were looking for after all this time. And without a doubt, from my mind, it is indeed Eclipsa's spell from Moon the Undaunted. It even makes perfect sense as to why they inspected Moon's room, and then coincidentally, right after inspecting it, it probably flew away but in between the cracks of the door, and then they just didn't realize it or something. The spells themselves not only dub it as Eclipse's most powerful spell, but a purple butterfly mist is formed much like how it was shown against Toffee after it was finished killing another spell. And yes, it was so powerful that it had the ability to not only kill Septarians, but also other spells inside of the wand. And while trying to escape its powerful self, all is lost at first due to the glowworm regaining its consciousness and the spell on the loose. But that is until Narwhal forgets that he can detect it using his echolocation, much like how actual whales in the world do. Also bats, and they creep me out.
It tried to touch me with its weird little bat fingers.
Eventually, they successfully catch the spell and is now in possession of Eclipsa's room of spells and her room only. Kinda strange how the MHC and the other part of this episode were just mentioning how spells that hadn't been used for centuries were being used in the Monster Temple. And even though it's great how Star's spells found infinite syrup after running out of syrup earlier in the beginning of this episode, there's a much bigger situation at hand. And it's something that we see Narwhal notice in the end as well. And my thoughts after watching this episode is that if they were really willing to destroy it, why try and do it now? Is it because Eclipsa is the owner of the wand now, so the spells are back on duty? But hang on a minute, we clearly saw that the other spells were in their rooms, so Eclipsa is responsible for instructing her spells to retrieve it or something? Most of all, were all of them really preparing themselves to self-destruct the entire wand of magic spells just to destroy the spell with no name? And by the way, I personally like to name the spell with no name the Dark Butterfly spell. I know it sounds kind of lazy, but when you think about it, I think it's kind of acceptable. But will they be using it for good? Will they legitimately destroy it? Is Eclipsa using it to take out someone in the Magical High Commission? Perhaps use it to free Globgore, since the most powerful spell was mentioned in Moon the Undaunted that no crystal can break the bond between two queens, but can the same be said about the spell itself? I mean, in this episode and the episode Moon the Undaunted, it has been shown to be able to penetrate nearly almost anything. And wait, hold on a minute. Is this the same spell her mother mentioned? Nah. But anyways, with all that being said, I am so happy to finally catch up with all the episode analysis videos that I unfortunately was not able to catch up with last week. But anyways, besides that, thank you all for supporting me once again. By the way, we made it past 150,000 subscribers. I am blowing up right now. Oh my gosh, thank you all for your support. I mean, really, all these years with my squeaky voice and everything. But anyways, with all that being said, this has been The Next Big Thing, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace!